In PSO2, there is something called compound techniques, and these combine two elements into one really strong technique. There's also another version of these called simple compound techniques, and with episode 5 we now have access to all of these. Now, to acquire the regular compounds, you can do one of two things. The first option, which I suggest you try first, would be to pick up the client orders from Clarice Crace, who's upstairs in the gate area. She will have 3 of these for you to do, 1 for each tech, and they will ask you to kill specific enemies in Ultimate Quests. Now, if you've never done Ultimate Quests before, they are not hard, but they spawn lots of enemies that will have a bit more health compared to what you may be used to. So, you generally want to try to find a quest to join that already has a decent amount of players in it. To do this, just search by parties on the current or other blocks instead of just quick matching with the first option. That being said, the second way you can get these is through the first option at the Photon Shop, and these will cost you 50 Photon Spheres each. And if you have a ton of these, then feel free to pick them up this way, but I still suggest trying to get it done through the Ultimate Quest if you can to save your spheres. Moving on to how to get the simple compound techniques, make your way to the right side of the center staircase in the gate area and pick up the client order from Marlu called "Are you interested in some new skills?" While we are here though, it should be mentioned that this very same client order also rewards you with the new Techter PA Heavy Hammer, which I will be showing at the end of the video, as I feel like it would be a waste if I didn't. Anyways, for this client order, Marlu will ask you to kill 500 supernatural enemies and clear the new Bewitched Woods exploration on any difficulty but with an A rank. Just to give you some perspective though, I got over 300 supernatural kills in one main advanced buster quest, which takes roughly 10 minutes. Though if you join a mostly full Bewitched Woods MPA, lots of supernatural mobs will spawn pretty fast there too. So, now that you know how to get everything, let's go over each tech one by one. Starting with the normal compound techniques, it should first be mentioned that these have some limitations. First off, you can only cast these from the sub-palette hotbar. Furthermore, these require you to charge them up before you can even use them, and you can do this by dealing a set amount of damage through normal and simple compound techniques. There is still a bit more to it though, as each tech can only charge up a small portion of the compound tech per hit, so this means using faster techs and/or ones that hit multiple times will charge them much faster. Though when it comes to mobbing, you'll likely charge these up pretty fast no matter what you use though if you're using AoE. The last thing to keep in mind for these is that they all share the same charge, but they each have their own individual cooldown. So if you can charge them up pretty fast, you can almost use these back to back if you really wanted to. Anyways, getting right to the techs, we first have Barantsia, which is a mixture of light and ice that will create swords of ice on your arms, and then have you approach your target and follow up with a flurry of melee ranged attacks. For the record, the gap closing distance is about the same length as a charged re-zandia, and there is super armor present during the slashing parts. This can also be cancelled out of with a dodge, however you will lose your charge when doing so. Next up is re-folemgia, which is a mixture of fire and dark. Upon activation, you will be rooted in place and have super armor for the rest of the duration while you let loose a concentrated beam of those elements. This tech will do 4 ticks of fire and dark damage each, and also has a chance to proc up to 8 dark explosions anywhere along the beam's path. The beam itself can also be redirected with directional inputs, and it's even more manageable with free aim. That all being said, this tech has the potential to be very strong, but requires you to make sure you are in a very safe spot to use it, so it's not always too practical to use. For the last compound technique, there is re-zandia, and this is a mix of wind and lightning that will allow you to move at high speeds while lightning will continuously strike your location. Right off the bat, upon use, you will gain iframes that will last its entire duration. If you are locked on, after reaching your target, you will spin around in a circle a bunch of times. However, if you are not locked on, you can freely control where you would like to move. Also, do note that if you are locked on to a part that breaks, you will end up moving away, and that this tech will be cancelled if you are under the shock status. Moving on now to the simple compound techniques, unlike the normal compounds, these don't have any real limitations outside of costing a bit of PP. Furthermore, these can also be used from either the sub-palette or the weapon palette. So, getting right to them, we first have re-barantsia, and this tech will first prop you up into the air with brief iframes, and then so long as you hold it, you will continue to fire off ice and light-based projectiles at the cost of about 6 PP per second. Best of all, you can move around freely when using this technique too. Then, upon releasing the button for this tech, you will then create a small explosion which grants super armor for its short duration. In general, this tech is really nice for some sustained range DPS and is relatively easy on your resources. Next, we have re-folemgia, which creates a spear out of fire and dark. By just tapping it, you will now have yourself a very nice disengage at your disposal, which also has iframes. However, if you hold it, you can continue to move around and deal damage to anything in your path. Then, when letting go, you will perform the same backstep we just mentioned. In general, it does not usually see as much use as the other compounds and simple compounds, though I personally still really like it to get out of sticky situations. Last, but surely not least for the simple compounds, there is re-zandia, which combines wind and lightning to create a lightning tornado at your desired location, and has amazing grouping potential. Normally, it costs 66 pp. However, you can continue to spam it at the cost of about 16 pp per second to keep the tornado going, and it'll then finish with the lightning strike at the end when you finally want it to end. You can also hold this tech down to get a better idea of where you want to place it, and then let go or start spamming after that. Like always, using free aim gives you much more control over this. Now, while that is just about it for the compound and simple compound techniques, I would like to spend this last bit here to quickly go over the new Techter PA Heavy Hammer, as it's also one of the rewards you get for doing the client order for these simple compounds. So, getting right to it, Heavy Hammer has 3 different ways to use, as it can be used uncharged and also has 2 charge stages as well. When just tapping it, it's a pretty decent gap closer, but deals very little damage. However, you do gain about 5 seconds of knockback resistance after the damaging part. This will also move you vertically if used when locked on and in the air. Furthermore, you can cancel out of this with a dodge to chain this back to back, but keep in mind that if you do dodge while in the air, you will lose some height. Next, its first state of charge has its gap closing distance severely limited, but makes up for this by doing some decent damage. Then, its second and final state of charge covers about the same distance as the previous, but takes about 4 seconds to fully charge, which is indicated by a blue orb around your wand, and does a ton of damage. Besides that though, there's really not too much to it. And that should just about do it for everything I wanted to cover today in this video. If you are interested in learning more about the Force and Techter, and I mean really dive deep into them, check out Ace's written Force guide and Kathy's written Techter guide that I have linked in the description, as they go over just about everything you would ever really want to know about when it comes to those 2 classes. So I'll leave you guys with that, and until next time, take care.